Hello, I'm Regina McCann-Hess, President of Forge Wealth Management, and welcome to our Women in Wealth series. Today, I have a new friend with me, and Linda, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and what you love about what you do?
So, as you said, I'm Linda Anderson of Anderson Elder Law, and what I do is I get to work with incredible, at this point, all women in a boutique firm that's located in Media in Westchester, and we do very specific types of things. We do elder law, life care planning, special needs planning, and then ordinary, estate administrations and trust administrations. But that's the work part, and on the other side, I have two grown kids, my husband Dan, and my goals for this year are, which I'm rounding out, is keeping houseplants alive. So maybe if we have time, I can show you my houseplants at the end of the video and see how they're doing. So maybe that'll be something for people to entice them to stay to the bitter end.
Yeah, that's a challenge. That's definitely a
It is.
challenge. It always looks easier than it really is.
Well, I'm married to somebody that has a green thumb and came from a farming family. And so for me, when I go to garden stores, I see plants and everyone I know by name, and I've killed relatives of every plant. So I was challenged 2 years ago to start this New Year's challenge to keep plants alive. And so by doing Zoom, we can actually share the results. So it'll be funny. We'll just show how I'm doing on one of the plants that I think everybody will have a comment on. So
Okay. Well, you're almost there. You almost made the year. So
almost,
if the
almost.
plant's still there, that's a good sign.
Yeah, you'll have to get that. Yeah. Okay. Very good. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, that's awesome. So I know we were talking a little bit about, your elder law versus your life care planning. Can you elaborate a little bit on both of those parts of your practice?
Yeah, I think that when you are struggling with long-term care issues, and what struggling with long-term care issues, the way to technically talk about that means that somebody needs support with activities of daily living or instrumental activities of daily living. And what people find is that they're observing this either in a parent or spouse or a child, and they're saying, what's happening here? And so within the world of lawyering, there is a focus on elder law and life care planning to understand that as people have progressive diseases or a significant a medical event, and all of a sudden they're going to be on what's called the continuum of care, people really struggle to figure out what's the right level of care. Can I keep somebody home? What would it take in terms of home health care or adult daycare to keep them safe? How do I make sure I take care of myself? Or do I need to move somebody with a higher level of need with lots of activities of daily living support to maybe personal care? And then people will lump in personal care and assisted living, and there's a very big difference. And then, of course, everybody says, I'm never going into a nursing home, or they've promised, Mom, I'll never put you in a nursing home, only to perhaps come to a time when they realize, I can't manage this at home anymore. So life care planning is a model of legal services to understand that the first order of business is to really carefully assess what's the least restrictive setting, what's safe, and then how do we bring every resource to bear, whether it's the family's time, the family's savings, and the income, and being really good stewards of all those resources. And then we dovetail it with a deep understanding of Medicaid, Medicare, long-term care insurance, income tax, inheritance tax. And so, yeah, we know how to do wills for when people die, but the real secret sauce is how do we make sure that we have them age in a way that preserves their dignity, their self-determination, and supports the family. So that's what our hard work is.
Wow, that is, a lot wrapped up in a little conversation. There's so many avenues you could go down there, but it's impressive because, as you're dealing and working with family members and clients, well, I don't know about you, but eventually my clients, we call them part of our family because we just get so close with them, right?
We are so lucky. When the holidays come, we get cookies, cakes. Without a pandemic, we would be getting hugs. We're
Yeah.
so really, we have we do really help these families in a way where we can't help but get very connected to them and to their adult children who then become clients too. The idea is that it's not a transaction in terms of producing documents. We're actually going through transitions that are super hard. And if you don't understand the legal, the medical, the financial pieces all at the same moment, that your planning is going to be seriously, tilted in one way or another. And you
Right.
don't have to have it be that way.
Right, right. And you do have to move with your clients through their life transitions. I know in my side of my business with my financial planning business, I do that with my clients, and it seems like you're paralleling doing the same exact thing, walking with them, holding their hand, guiding them through these life transitions.
Yeah, and the reason why it's important to get someone like you or us is that when we experience a transition, it is so personal and it's going to be maybe a once in a lifetime event, but it is not a once in a lifetime event for us. We know what the predictable pattern is going to be, where the
Mhm.
people are perhaps going to fall through the cracks, and what are the resources they're going to need, knowing where they're going, where we do know where they're going. So there's a wisdom that comes with being a really experienced financial advisor or an elder law attorney that's certified. And the idea is that we've done this before. We've taken families through these paths, and it makes a difference if you plan. It really does.
And it makes a difference to the family, not just the client. It makes a difference to the family because you're standing there, you're holding their hand, you're guiding them. Who else is going to do that for them? The people who don't have that, it's a huge different experience. It's not as
Yeah.
good of an experience as what if they were working with you.
You know, I should be capturing the people at the very end of the representation who say, I don't know how I would have done this without you.
Truly, truly.
And what's remarkable is that we work really hard to educate these families in the powers of attorney. So it's not as if we try to, you know, uh, just assume that they'll not want to know what's going on. What we assume is that they do want to be partnering with us, and we really want to make sure that at the end of it, they are a highly trained advocate for their family and for themselves, and that they've got the wisdom now so that they can use it for their own estate planning. And by teaching people, we're leveraging what we're doing, and that is just part of the mission as well, to always be teaching.
For sure. And on that note, having a conversation, like making I'll use my own example. My mom and I went through this scenario this summer, right? And I got hollered at by my brother. He's like, my mom, you're making me think mom's going to die. I'm like, no, this is planning. We're preparing so we know what mom wants. She's not
Right.
dying. So I got in trouble, but it was the right thing to do. So my mom, we had to sit down, what do let's talk about your will. Let's talk about this, that, and the other thing. I said, but let's also talk about your healthcare power of attorney and what do you want done? Because I know what I would do for you, but I don't know if that's what you would want. So when family members are making another family member or a friend that healthcare durable power of attorney, they need to have that conversation and say, okay, well, this is what I want and this is what I don't want. And I'm sure you give them a checklist so that they know.
Yeah.
And then, I carry it on my phone so I can access it in case I ever have to show up at a hospital and say, no, it's right here. I'm the person. But I don't think a lot of people do that unless they're working with someone like you to guide them through something like that.
I'm always surprised when new client would come in and they have a will and then they have nothing else but the will. And so I'll say, well, how come you don't have a financial power of attorney or a healthcare power of attorney? And the answer is often, well, I've been married for 60 years or 65 years. Why do I need any paper that says, of course, my wife's going to handle the finances? She's been always paying the bills. I don't even know where the checkbook is. But the idea is that if you don't actually get the legal documents, all of these transitions that we're so concerned about are very difficult to navigate. And by actually doing careful powers of attorney, you can overcome the concern that many people have about giving up control. That document does not give up control. You remain in control. You drive your own bus and you get to pick who is it that when you're vulnerable, who's actually going to be managing these problems? And when you talk about, we'll just goof on your suggestion to your mom, there's often sibling dynamics that are very difficult to overcome at a moment of panic and crisis. And the idea is those parents knew in many cases how the siblings were going to interact and who was best for the healthcare power of attorney, who was best for the financial power of attorney. And it's not up to the kids to sort this out in the middle of a crisis. It's up to us. You want to keep control, then you get the documents done. And the living will in Pennsylvania is really important because we come from a state that has a very conservative point of view that's reflected in our law. And so if you think about, for instance, Terry Schiavo,
Mm.
she was somebody that for 15 years had a feeding tube. And there are definitely two sides to the argument, and there's no right side. But if you're ever permanently unconscious and there's no hope of recovery, and we don't know what you would have put in writing, it's interesting to know that Pennsylvania says we're going to presume that Terry Schiavo would have wanted a feeding tube,
Hmm.
that you would want a feeding tube. So many times, I've never had anybody say I wanted a feeding tube, but it's best to have those things in writing so that there's no questions later on. So it's you just, these documents are not difficult to do. They're not expensive to do. You don't do it online. The most important things that you're doing for yourself, you don't just generate on some document, but you take control and you manage it yourself.
Use a professional always.
Use a professional, right?
Goodness gracious. It will save you a lot of time, energy, money, and angst afterwards. And you had a good point about when you're in the middle of that crisis, the last thing you want to have to do is go to court and try to say, well, I'm the person, that's going to make these decisions, because you're not going to be able to do it. And then your parent or your family or your loved ones sitting there, and you can't help them the way that they want them, how it's supposed to happen. But
And there's always a question, is it too late? Do we really have to go to court? And what I would say to people is that even if you've been given a diagnosis of dementia, it doesn't mean that you're incapacitated. And that even people that do have a guardian appointed, under the law, there's a requirement that the guardian go back and check with them and ask what they want. So we assume that there's always some bit of self-determination. And even for my families where there may be somebody with dementia, it's really clear that they recognize who their family members are and that they still trust them, and under the law of agency would still be able to sign some documents if we are really careful to assess the capacity. So what I want everyone to know is that it's never too late. We're not trying to scare you into saying that there's a guardianship at the end of the path. In fact, just the opposite. No matter where you are, in whatever stage, there is a solution. And the idea is to, again, look for that self-determination and document it and make it as powerful as you can for the people that do the work, the agents, and give them a document that's actually usable.
hmm well, you do such important work. I mean, on so many levels, you touch people and affect how their outcomes could be. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
it absolutely, what I would say is most times people come in and say, we want to keep our parent or a spouse at home. And we work really hard using every public benefit that can dovetail with their savings to make that happen. And it is not easy
Mm-mm.
to actually achieve the results. But the idea is that if you have a family member or a spouse who's willing to leverage their caregiving, their one-on-one caregiving with public benefits, there is a way to sort of keep that person at home. At the same time, there are moments when home healthcare, even if it's somebody who is a wonderful caregiver, there's a tipping point where sometimes it's just not safe. And when we have those cases, what's also very helpful is we have a social worker on staff. We actually have two of them. And the idea is that sometimes these transitions, if it is one of like the more drastic ones, is sometimes a process and not immediate decision on a day. So, there are conversations that sometimes if somebody who's a new voice comes in and says in a very calm way, to the caregiver, you are still going to be really important. Here's what your role is going to be when and if this actually happens and there's a nursing home placement. And not to worry, we will make sure that we find the right nursing home that's close by so you can visit, and you'll know who the director of nursing is, you'll know who the administrator is, and we'll be right there with you. So the idea is not to just have people make decisions without any information, but to actually put them in a situation where they're controlling the timing with a lot of information. And when you get that kind of support, people can do things they didn't know they could.
And that takes some of that fear away.
It does, yeah. And it gives them the control, and they'll never regret decisions that they made with a process that's actually that thorough. And that's what we want, is not for people to live in regret and panic after a transition. Transitions are hard for everybody, but at the same time, if we tell you what this is going to be like, and the facility is going to suggest, what happens for the very first week or two, then you actually have information that says, okay, this is not, we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're just making sure our wheel is perfect.
True, true, true. Wow. So much information
So
here.
much, yeah,
I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so many questions. So I'm going to pivot a little bit though.
okay.
And because I know you have been an attorney for many years and have probably experienced many different eras. And with that, I'm just curious about what are some of the challenges maybe that you have faced in your career?
Yeah. Well, I was lucky enough in one of my very first jobs as a lawyer to be a slave at a bigger law firm.
Mm,
As a young lawyer, a partner came in 1987 and said to me, keep track of those nursing home rules. And it wasn't even called elder law. And so I was so lucky to be told, go and focus on elder law before it became elder law, that it really became a specialty at the very beginning. And as the world of elder law has evolved, it really has changed. Not only are we living longer, even from 1987, they're just adjusting the IRS life expectancy table right now. We're all going to be 120.
ooh,
The idea is that there is a tension between how are we going to pay for these long-term care expenses for the middle class. And there is a lot of education that needs to be rolled out so that people that are in their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, at whatever stage you are, that they understand how it used to be in 1987 when Medicare and Medicaid was really much more robust and based on fee for service and very simple to understand. Even Medicare now has all kinds of variations on a theme, and that's just health insurance and Medicaid. The message is that for my children who are in their late 20s and people that are in their 30s and 40s, is that you must understand that the things that I'm doing now for perhaps your parents or your grandparents are not going to be available. And so when we put a plan together for them to even think about aging in place, when you're that young, first of all, they think they don't need it. But second, of all, they don't realize the beauty of your work and compound inflation and complex annuities or life insurance, that the things that they would be doing ordinarily now can actually have a little bit of a rider and a little bit of a tweak. And while they're at an age they can purchase this coverage without actually having to finance it every year, there
mhm.
are things that are important no matter what age you are to understand that elder law has completely transformed since 87, and in the next 20 years it's going to transform. And what I would say is that because we're in the middle of a pandemic, because of the spending that's been needed, when you look at where the budgets are at the federal and state level, the idea of actually looking at Medicare and Medicaid is going to be very much, again, a political football. So
Oh yeah.
what's that Chinese curse? May you live in interesting times. We couldn't get any more interesting than this.
No,
And
no.
this is it.
Yeah, and they may be forced to tackle that football in the 2021 from some of the things I'm reading, but
Yeah.
they will keep putting it off and putting it off until they absolutely have to, because no politician wants to deal with that because they know it's a hot potato.
It is,
Mm,
and it's an important hot potato that people rely on. And if it were to
absolutely.
go and go away, at the same time, there are many things that erode some of the benefits within Medicare and Medicaid that unless you're actually talking to somebody who goes deep into it, you don't even realize how they move the ball. So it's a yearly thing to sort of keep up with it now.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh-huh. So you mentioned the pandemic. How have you had to pivot with your practice, with your clients due to the pandemic?
Yeah, I think it was remarkable. Last year, we had completely transformed the software tech stack for our firm. And so when the pandemic, when Governor Wolf gave us a day's notice saying, okay, all businesses are now shut, the first pivot was to actually see the staff, everybody pick up their laptop, their scanner, their voice over internet phone, and get in the car and drive off. And what we really recognized immediately was that elder law, and it was finally confirmed by the Pennsylvania, is an essential service. So what we found is that not only did we have to pivot in terms of where the staffing was situated, but to recognize that the need never went away, and in fact has been even bigger.
I
And so
would agree with that.
it's amazing to me where, I think it's a credit to the team because at a moment of crisis, when the clients felt overwhelmed, there was utilization of our services, which meant that our message got through. People knew if you don't know what to do, you must call us. The other thing that was really a pivot, and I guess it's expected, is just how many clients we lost.
Mm.
And as we round out this year, everybody sort of took a break this summer, and I think sort of felt like the pandemic resolved. My pandemic for my clients never resolved. It never lightened up. And for the families that have actually lost people in the nursing homes in our area, this has been very difficult. And I think, the transition for us has sort of been the proofs in the pudding. The idea is that we are essential services. And I am so amazed that people are reaching out to us who before they didn't want to sign documents. All of a sudden they're signing documents. And we have this best process now where we have the witnesses looking out the window. The client drives up into a particular parking space, and we come out with a clipboard. And within 10 minutes, they've signed all their documents. They get their documents in a sealed envelope, and off they go. So the idea is to really use technology. We had invested before, and now we're even investing in more things that are in the cloud that are automated. What we're finding is that the deeper we go into technology and automate things, it gives us more time to do the things we want, which is the one-on-one legal work and the caring.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that sounds like fabulous work that you're doing and fabulous reaction
Well,
to.
it's been interesting, and
Yeah.
it's the what happens when you have to figure things out is the things that would have otherwise taken 2 years, they get done in 2 weeks. And so there's a silver lining. The idea is that we've actually pivoted and continue to pivot every time we see a need.
Yeah, and that has happened. That's one of the main things that people keep talking about through the pandemic is that it has forced change that was going to come that may have come 5 to 10 years from now. It forced it in like 6 months, and we're way ahead of our curve now with some good change too.
I am so impressed by the people that, I'm not sure what my oldest Zoom client was, but the bottom line is that even people that thought they would struggle using Zoom or the internet, we have a client portal now, so we can deliver documents electronically without having to have things go through the mail. Um, Everybody, technology has progressed to the point where now it's very intuitive for certain things. So if you buy the right technology, it doesn't come with a barrier of learning how to do it. It's very intuitive. So we're lucky in that the clients, no matter what age, have been able to connect the dots. And the funniest one is, you're on Zoom and sometimes the camera is shooting up on the ceiling, and you just let it go because at least they're there.
They're
So
there.
I'm so happy you're here. So it's always a light moment where sometimes you see the cat walking across the desk or, something else. And it's just, it makes it very human.
Yeah, I've had my dog Hal in the middle, like she's sleeping and all of a sudden she just starts howling in the middle of my session. And I'm like, oh, sorry.
But you know what? I think everybody feels connected, and those things are such human moments, and that those are really just as important as what you're saying in terms of the advice. I think it's we're all in this together. You
Yeah, it definitely does humanize you. That's for sure. And then they can see how Irish I am because then I just turn brick red.
know? Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So I know you have a lot more work to do, many people to help, but I do have to ask, what is your retirement vision?
So my retirement vision is going to be modeled after my mom, who just turned 83. And what's remarkable about her is she has a sound mind in a sound body. That she, when my father died relatively young at 64, she really made a decision that she wanted to be healthy. So she who had never, really had a goal of working out and being physically fit. She was transformed, and she is a clinical specialist, a psychiatric nurse, clinical specialist. She has her own practice, and she doesn't work, the hours that she did, but she scaled back, and so she, with her sense of purpose that she has with her work, is still connected in supporting people in a really impactful way. At the same time, she is somebody that's now used all the other time that would have gone into work to really be the matriarch of the family and to really keep everybody connected and close. And she travels a lot before the pandemic to make sure that she was visiting everybody. So I have a wonderful model in my mother. And I think, I look forward to the day when I can scale back and not be so deep into the technology decisions and
Mhm.
some of the administrative things. But I think that, no matter how old I get, the idea of having a purpose with advocacy and around the issues of aging and special needs and disability planning,
Mhm.
there's always going to be work. So I'm sure I will be traveling and seeing my kids and grandkids, but also having a piece of the activity that I do now, but maybe just scale back.
That's a beautiful vision. I love that you're talking about your mom. That's heartwarming.
Well, we can't show it to her because she'll start crying.
I know, right, right, right. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, so if people want to find more about you, learn more about your firm, how would they go about doing that?
So our main office is in Media on State Road, not to be confused with State Street. And
Mm,
it's interesting, people will drive by, see the sign, and we've had about 3 or 4 people just drive in. But really, the better approach is to make a phone call or to go on the web, Anderson Elder Law. We also have a Facebook page, and I think we're launching an Instagram page pretty soon. And the Twitter account is Elder Law Girl. I have many tweets on there, but none of them are particularly focused on elder law at this point. I have a lot of things that maybe more hockey related and some other things of my interest. So it's a little bit varied. The idea is that there's a lot to learn about elder law, and we'll be having a new website rollout probably in about 3 or 4 months. And
oh,
the idea is to really offer some excellent content there too. So what I would say is check back.
wow, great, great stuff. Great. And I think your website now offers a lot too. So I can't wait to see the new one.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's great. Okay. Well, thank you for joining me. This was excellent. I learned so much and I'm always eager to learn more. And I love what you're doing.
Thank
It's
you.
heartwarming for sure.
And I'm really glad that we were able to sort of get the message out about how you really can combine the services of two different people and to actually have a laser beam focus.
For sure. For sure. And I also want to thank everyone else for following us on our podcasts and our videos. This again is Regina McCann Hess. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Forge Wealth. And on LinkedIn, I'm Regina McCann Hess. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
Take care.